Was there an attempted assassination of President Taft on this date? Welcome back to On This Date. Today's date is October 16, 2023. It is the 289th day of the year. There are 76 days left in 2023. It is the 42nd Monday in the 42nd week and the 24th day of fall. You got 66 days left till winter. Today is National Feral Cat Day. On October 16th, National Feral Cat Day goes down. So start practicing your alley cat strut and get your feline friends together. This is the day to celebrate cats of all stripes, no matter where they call home. So basically, wild cats living in your neighborhood are feral cats now. When I was a kid, we just called them neighborhood cats. In Redondo Beach, by where I used to live, Alta Vista Elementary School, there's this big thing of bushes. Went all the way around this church, and it's the type of bushes where you climb under, but it's next to impossible to walk through. Whole bunch of cats lived in there. And in the early mornings, if I was up and going by there, I would see this older woman who would be opening cans of cat food and sliding it under there. Every single day she did this for years. And then I never saw him, so I imagine she came back later on and picked up the cans or whatever. But yeah, that was weird. She did this forever. I'm sure if she's still alive, because that was like 15 years ago, she's celebrating tomorrow. All right, let's see what else October 16th has given us. 1869, the Cardiff Giant, one of the most famous American hoaxes, is discovered. The Cardiff Giant was one of the most famous archaeological hoaxes in American history. It was a 10-foot tall, roughly 3,000-pound petrified man, supposedly. Uncovered on October 16, 1869 by workers digging in a well behind the barn of William C. Stubb Newell in Cardiff, New York. He covered the giant with a tent. It soon became an attraction, and people would pay to come see it. Now, what's interesting about this thing, A, it was anatomically correct, and originally, when they pulled it out of the ground, people would come by to see it, because they thought it was like this mummified man or whatever. And then the owner of the property threw this tent up and started charging 50 cents a piece to come in there. Every day, he would see like 300 to 500 people go through his tent. People started flooding to Cardiff, New York. Local hotels and restaurants said that they saw more people in 4 days than they had ever seen before in the history of their business. Well, when actual scientists finally got a hold of it, actually a geologist came to visit, he examined it and declared that it could not be a fossilized man, but he hypothesized that the statue was carved by French Jesuit priests in the 16th or 17th century in order to impress the local natives. And a lot of people were skeptical because they found this while they were digging a well, but most people said there's no reason you'd be digging a well there. So it was all a hoax. Eventually it was sold to Barnum, P.T. Barnum, and you could still find it in his museum in Michigan, including the one that he faked and started parading it around the country. 1882, the Nickel Plate Railroad opens for business. 1909, William Howard Taft, president, and Porfirio Diaz, president of Mexico, hold the first summit between the U.S. and Mexican presidents. They narrowly escape assassination. That's what the press said. It wasn't all that. We'll get to that in a minute. This historic summit between the two presidents marked a significant turning point in diplomatic relations between the two neighboring nations. This landmark meeting took place in Juarez, Mexico, and was the first ever encounter between a U.S. and Mexican president. The summit aimed to address various pressing issues, including border disputes, trade agreements, and regional stability, as both leaders recognized the importance of fostering cooperation and understanding between their countries. During the summit, Taft and Diaz engaged in extensive discussions, leading to the signing of several agreements that laid out the groundwork for improved bilateral relations. This agreement included provisions for settling territorial disputes and promoting economic collaborations, which would later prove essential in the forging of a more peaceful and mutual beneficial relationship between the U.S. and Mexico. The summit between Taft and Diaz served as a pivotal moment in the history of U.S.-Mexico relations, setting the stage for future diplomacy and cooperation between the two nations, and fostering a sense of goodwill and understanding that would endure for decades to come. Now, there are some books that claim there was an assassination attempt, but I don't really think it was, and a lot of people don't think it was. Here's what happened. No one actually shot at William Howard Taft. Taft had traveled to El Paso, Texas for the historic meeting with Mexican president, and security officers found and arrested a man wielding a pistol just a few feet away from Taft and Diaz. Some say he had the gun out, Some say it was holstered. You gotta remember, this is 1909, and this is Texas, basically, in Mexico. Everyone had a gun on their hip. But because this guy had a gun and the security had to take it from him, it turned into a big to-do, but he didn't point it at anyone. He didn't pull a trigger. I think he probably just forgot that he shouldn't have it that close to the president. It's not like today. Today you can't get within a mile of the president with a pistol on your hip. If you happen to, you've got some problems ahead of you. 1923, Walt Disney and his brother Roy founded the Disney Brothers Cartoon Studio, today known as Walt Disney Company. 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis begins. U.S. President John F. Kennedy is informed of photos taken on October 14th by a U-2 spy plane showing nuclear missiles in Cuba. The crisis would last for 13 days. I was just in Dallas, Texas, and I went to Dealey Plaza where President Kennedy was shot. And I'll tell you what, I could put some rounds down range, so to speak. I was in the infantry in the Army. I grew up shooting when we go camping, things like that. I know how to fire a weapon. I'm a decent shot. That shot on a moving target, 2 of them on a moving target that small, that far away, I think it's impossible. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but just standing there and looking and trying to figure it out and how fast they were moving, I don't think it was one person. Especially the rifle he had. Bolt action that first went into production in 1895. I'm not sure what year his was actually made, but yeah, I don't believe it. Movies released on October 16th, 2015. Goosebumps. Okay, so the books were great. R.L. Stine started creating these Goosebumps books, and they were scary books, but they were very mild. So like a 6-year-old, you could read it to them or they could read it. On up to 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, they all loved them. He did a really good job in all these books where it did exactly what it says. Gave people goosebumps, but didn't really scare anyone. So anyway, they finally decided to make a movie out of his books, and this one was it. It starred Jack Black and nobody else I've ever heard of. If you got kids or grandkids that are, let's say, under 12, this is a great movie, and the book, they had a TV show briefly. They're good to watch around Halloween. Born on October 16, 1946, Suzanne Summers, actress and singer who rose to fame portraying Chrissy Snow on the television TV series Three's Company from 1977 to 1981. She demanded more money, like way more than everyone else was making on the show. She felt like she was the big star. They didn't give it to her, and then they forced her to live out her contract, but since there was such a toxic environment around her now, they made her act like she went to visit an aunt, and she would call in during each episode, like they'd film her in another set, and then they just splice it in of her having a phone conversation with the other roommates. It was really a messed up situation. I watched the whole thing on this little documentary. It's too bad. So this is really strange. About an hour after I recorded this video, Suzanne Summers passed away. Cancer, sadly. It's weird. I had nothing to do with it. It was the cancer. All right, back to the video. Died on October 16, 2011, Dan Wheldon, British race car driver who was the 2005 Indy Racing League IndyCar Series champion. He tragically died during an accident at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. The fatal wreck was considered one of the worst ever in the sport. He began actually racing at age 4 in go-karts. He left behind a wife and 2 children. On the day of his death, he reportedly signed a deal with Andretti Autosports to replace Danica Patrick. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.